Oh man, I love this show so much. Season one is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. If we're talking about establishing a postmodern tonality, um, a sentimental postmodern tonality, Dawson's Creek season one is extraordinary. It accomplishes this compositional, structural, thematic feat extraordinarily well. If you can, purchase physical copies of the first season. I have the DVDs because it retains the original theme song. That I don't want to wait for our lives to be over. It has that. Because of course on Hulu and streaming and future DVD releases of subsequent seasons, it does not have that original theme song. I don't mind the replacement song. You get used to it after a while, but there's something about hearing "I Don't Want to Wait" that ignites all of the feels in the world. Also, I was listening to the commentary track on the season finale with Kevin Williamson, and if you follow my channel at all, you know I love to do these postmodern readings of his work. I'm probably Kevin Williamson's biggest fan. Um, just shamelessly, I absolutely love his vision, his work, what he did for art, specifically postmodern teen art and horror films. But it's really funny. Let me just pull it up on my phone so that I don't quote him completely incorrectly, because on the commentary he acts like what an absolute legend. This is a quote from Kevin. "We knew all the four-syllable words like all the other pop psychologists inside of everyone. We started commenting on it. We started commenting on ourselves, commenting on everyone else. Is that postmodern? I hate that word because I don't even know what it means." Now, I think it's really funny that Kevin Williamson, someone who I have long held up to be this like postmodern cinematic prophet, you know, one of the greatest postmodern thinkers in American media, hates the term, hates the word postmodern because he kind of he refuses it upon definition, because the word does seem to have many. The word postmodern you'd have to deconstruct to even get to what postmodernism means, which is probably the most ironic thing about postmodernism in art. I think that's really curious. But what's always separated Kevin Williamson is that he's a postmodern sentimentalist. He's Frank Capra of Cape Side. He's Dawson Leary. So Dawson's Creek, I think I'm never ironic when I say this, when I claim that every cinephile owes it to themselves to watch Dawson's Creek, because much like he would do in films like Scream and films like The Faculty, Dawson's Creek is kind of a study of the punished cinephile, of a cinephile outgrowing his Peter Pan syndrome. Dawson Leary is a die-hard Steven Spielberg obsessive. And also on the commentary, Kevin Williamson expressed how many hoops they had to jump through in order for them to use Steven Spielberg posters and reference him so much. In fact, like Spielberg wanted a copy of each script, and Williamson had to send him like a glowing, like saccharine tribute of a letter requesting permission to use his properties in their teen soap opera. Basically claiming that you're the reason that I'm doing anything, that you're my hero, that kind of thing. And I do buy that to a certain extent. I do buy that Kevin Williamson is a huge Steven Spielberg fan, or I buy, and he might hate that I'm going to use the word postmodern, but I buy that in a postmodern sense, and the idea that he wouldn't be the same without the Spielberg sentimentality that he had to deconstruct in order to reach maturity. Because maturity is really deconstructing adolescence. That's how you reach maturity. And Dawson Leary, it's very difficult to watch him in this season as he kind of leaps between the blonde and the brunette, well, he makes all these terrible decisions. It makes you want to cringe the way he acts, and I think mostly because a cinephile can see themselves in Dawson. Dawson sees his life cinematically. He thinks that films have elevated real life, and vice versa. Real life has elevated films. He's very insecure about sexuality. He has this wonderful part in the pilot talking about sex. Why is everyone so interested in sex? If sex is so important, why doesn't Spielberg have a sex scene in any of his movies? He keeps it in its proper place in film, as we should in life, even though his father explains to him sex is a huge part of who we are as human beings. Dawson Leary is the ultimate punished cinephile. I've often said if he was in a Scream film, if he was a Scream character, he would be the killer. He's that kind of personality. But of course, here we're dealing with a teen soap opera, and James Van Der Beek, Michelle Williams, Joshua Jackson, Katie Holmes are all extraordinary. Especially Joshua Jackson and Katie Holmes. You can really feel something incredible between the two of them. In fact, my favorite part of the entire season is from the double date episode where Pacey starts getting feels for Joey, and they're in her kitchen, and he says, I tell you what, though, don't bet against that Potter girl. I tell you what, though, don't bet against that Potter girl. That's a moment that just makes me smile ear to ear. Puts a strong light on my day. And of course, Dawson and Joey are the two who have a long, tortured subtext together. And Dawson's Creek, every episode of this season, and I believe of seasons 2 and 3 for the most part, possibly 4, they set it up, the pre-credits, the cold open is always Dawson and most normally Joey watching a film, finding ways to apply it to their own life, either ironically, cynically, and going from there, setting deconstruction as the tone for each episode. In fact, they overanalyze their lives until they can distance themselves from the emotional eclipses of their coming of age, of that experience. And Kevin Williamson is quite fascinating here. We see a lot of the motifs and tropes that Williamson will experiment with in future films. I just brought up Pacey's relationship with Miss Jacobs, his teacher. This is a trope that was experimented with in The Vampire Diaries and The Faculty, in like an unused plot thread in Scream 4. Kevin Williamson really likes that trope of and actually most normally like an older woman and a younger man. He likes this trope a lot, and we are able to do some deep philosophical kind of pop psychology as well through this D student with a Julius Caesar haircut. This punchline of a misunderstood joke. Pacey really is such an incredible character, and Joshua Jackson probably lays down the best performance of this season. I think overall, Michelle Williams gives the best performance of the show, like if we can combine every season together, and then followed by Katie Holmes and Kerr Smith. But Joshua Jackson shines in season 1. He's incredible here. So much charisma, so much roguish charm. I love Joshua Jackson. He's delightful, absolutely delightful. Dawson's Creek, the best episodes for me is the pilot, the detention episode, and the final episode, Decisions. I love how the pilot and Decisions are bookended. In fact, like we have a tracking shot moving closer to Dawson's house to open up the pilot, and at the end of Decisions, the final episode of the season, we are moving away from that. And of course, Joey and Dawson are kissing each other in the window, silhouetted quite beautifully, actually. Detention, my favorite character on the entire show is Abby, played by Monica Keena, and Detention, oh, hello, Abby. That's such a cool episode. And that's another motif that Williamson would use later on in films like The Faculty. It's a Breakfast Club kind of episode. And of course, in The Faculty, he weaponizes the Breakfast Club, and here he deconstructs the Breakfast Club quite remarkably. Abby is such a great character. I love Abby so much. She's the best character on Dawson's Creek, and Monica Keena. Um, yeah. Can I go back in time and marry Monica Keena in 1998? That'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool if that were possible. I'd do it in a heartbeat. She's amazing and like super hot. Mm. Drink my coffee to quench my thirst, shameless thirst for Monica Keena over here. But this season is really good. In fact, you can stop. I don't think you should stop watching Dawson's Creek after season 1 because I think season 2 and season 3 are a lot better. I think it peaks in season 2 around the Abby Morgan climax of Abby's character arc. I think that's where it peaks in complete quality, and also Williamson leaves the show at that point as well. He kind of leaves around the end of season 2. Season 3, that's just that's the most iconic examples of Dawson's Creek. That's what people normally think of when they think of Dawson's Creek, are things that occurred in season 3, and that's a very, very good season. I think just it did peak philosophically at some point in season 2, most likely at the end of Abby's character arc, for me personally. But season 1 is excellent example of how to lay down tonality, and if you did stop watching after this season, that's when you get the Spielberg sentimentality. Because things don't really go as planned. Things don't really go as planned from here. If you want that happy ending, if you want like a whimsical, sentimental feeling of wonder, stop watching after season 1 because it's going to get complicated. Just imagine Dawson and Joey forever in that window kissing each other. Because that's your happy ending. That's Frank Capra of Cape Side giving you the happy ending. And if you decide to go on, oh man, you are in for a postmodern roller coaster. Season 1 is great. Season 1 is excellently set up. Lays the seeds for a lot of future storylines, for a lot of transgressions, a lot of attractions, so many wonderful things, so many wonderful music moments. As a piece of postmodern art, it's stunning. It is stunning. I love that Kevin Williamson claims to despise the word postmodernism because he expertly conveys it. He's an expert postmodernist. Dawson's Creek is transcendentally good, and season 1 is outrageously well designed. I love this season. And to reiterate, every cinephile, if you're watching my channel and you think that I cover Dawson's Creek ironically, get the fuck out of here. There's the door. Leave. Dawson's Creek is probably better than your favorite. You need to watch it. You learn so much from this movie. From this television series, from this work of art. You can learn so much from Kevin Williamson, especially from Dawson's Creek. And even if you just watch the first season, you could learn so much from this season. So much about life, about art, about structure, about philosophy, about romance, about how cute Katie Holmes was back then, about so many things. It's invaluable. Dawson's Creek, I'm glad to call it my favorite show of all time. Because it hits. It hits so good. I tell you what, don't bet against that Williamson guy. Because he'll surprise you. Oh man, thanks for watching this video. This is Film Lovers Are Sick People, and I'm gonna blame the movies. Dawson's Creek. What a masterpiece. What a masterwork. Absolute hero.
I know where you're coming come from, or just who has the misfortune of being responsible for your existence, but you are a lying, manipulative, and cruel person, and the fact that you are only 16 years old makes me feel more sorry for you than any of the people in this room whose lives you're so intent on destroying. You're pathetic.
I mean, your favorite pastime is making my life a living hell.
That's not what I do. I play such a crucial role in this little circle, and you guys are just too unimaginative to notice. I'm the girl everyone loves to hate. I'm the scapegoat. I'm the one you can take out all your anger and aggression on and never lose a moment's sleep over.
You have it mixed up, Abby. You trash us. You're mean.
Well, being sweet is boring. I don't have family lives like you guys. My mom isn't a lunatic. My dad isn't in prison. I'm not the prodigal daughter from New York. My parents' divorce is boring. My house is boring. There's no intrigue, no drama. So you know what? I create drama. And I think it's a valid extracurricular activity.
Cult Boyfriend here, back to talk about Dawson's Creek. Again, second season. Again, the second season. I actually have another video, my very first Dawson's Creek focused video called Dawson's Creek Wants to Gaslight You. It was largely about this season and largely about my favorite character of the entire show, Abby Morgan. And yeah, this video is going to be largely about Abby, but before we get to her, let me talk about a few things that I should probably just at least touch upon. Incredibly important season of the show. We are introduced to the McPhees, Andy and Jack, and Jack McPhee has begins one of the most significant character arcs in American television. His character Jack was an incredibly important character in queer television history, in cinema history, in teen media, and we get to see the beginning of his arc here. And Kerr Smith probably lays down the best performance of the season, and this is coming from someone who would, do anything for my Lord and Savior Monica Keena, who played Abby Morgan. Kerr Smith, there's no denying the unexpected tenderness, pathos, intensity, and charm that he brought to Jack McPhee. And his storyline throughout the entirety of Dawson's Creek is mammoth in its influence and importance, but it's great to see it started so well, see it begun so well here in season 2. Jack was really put through a lot of depth already, just so much depth. I do find it kind of funny, and they do talk about this later on in Dawson's Creek. I think in the last season, they're like, Jack, remember when you were into art and you were like a weird kind of neurotic artsy kid? Because they of course turn him into like some football stud and then some drunken frat boy. They kind of turn him into the antithesis of what season 2 Jack McPhee was. But this show is, of course, obsessed with its own self-reference, so they bring that up later on as well. And while we're on the topic of the McPhees, Meredith Monroe is extraordinary here as Andy. I love Andy. Incredibly underrated character. I love Andy. She's great. She's one of the highlights of this season, and this season is, it's hard to say. I think it's my favorite season, but mostly, or primarily because of Abby Morgan and some of the stuff with Andy. Also some of the conversations that Dawson has about his film Creek days. That's when the show... So season 1 laid down the groundwork, the foundation, the postmodern sentimentalism that Kevin Williamson, our own Frank Capra of Capeside, was seeking to do with Dawson's Creek, kind of a punished cinephile, optimistic love story, but still with a decent amount of cynicism. Season 2 Dawson's Creek takes no time to deconstruct itself. Season 2 is a deconstruction of Dawson's Creek. Dawson's Creek deconstructing itself almost directly out the gate. And Mrs. Kennedy, played remarkably well by Machen Amick, offers... No one can criticize Dawson's Creek better than Dawson's Creek. Saying that his show is, or his film Creek Days, but they're really talking about Dawson's Creek, the television show, since Creek Days is a romanticized version of Dawson's own life. Like, so it is like season 1 of Dawson's Creek, essentially. It's like she's watching season 1 of Dawson's Creek and saying that that it's basically a bunch of kids who talk too much, who overanalyze their lives, that there's no emotion, that nothing is gripping about it, nothing is truthful about it, and that they've seen it all before. This kind of postmodern trend is nauseating, and she says, we've seen this all before, to the point that this borders on plagiarism. Dawson's Creek knows how to roast itself for sure, but I'm delaying the inevitable here. I love these meta self-referential talks about Creek Days, about art, about all of these things. I'm a sucker for them, sure, but I'm delaying the inevitable. This is season Abby. This is Abby Morgan's season, and Abby is a delightful character. Monica Keena is Nancy Drew from hell, the ridiculously cute psychopathic brunette of my wildest teenage dreams. This mean girl to really end all mean girls. She was fantastic. I'm going to link the video that I mentioned earlier called Dawson's Creek is Trying to Gaslight You, because I really dive into her character there. But since she's one of my favorite characters in all of media, there's certainly a lot more I can say about Abby. Abby gets me. Abby absolutely gets me. And Abby gets herself. Dawson's Creek is a show that is increasingly and intensely self-aware, and Abby Morgan is incredibly aware of her function within this group. I mean, imagine this show without Abby Morgan. Nothing. It would honestly be what Mrs. Kennedy was saying that it was. It would be just a terribly saccharine tale of white people problems, at its most basic. Abby Morgan is this like postmodern hurricane of plot devices for every character. At her funeral, Andy says that she made me a stronger person. She made every single archetype and character on this show stronger people by refusing something of theirs, by limiting their happiness, by going out of her way to try to ruin them. She served such an important function on the show, and no one was able to realize it. The writers most certainly realized this. That's why we would get a Drew Valentine. Even the characters called a male Abby Morgan later on in the show, someone to occupy this role that Abby so perfectly occupied. And season 2 insists on Abby so much. So much. She was every reason why this season moved at all. She's every reason why this season worked. Because she was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Monica Keena killed this role, and Abby Morgan is the reason I love Dawson's Creek as much as I do. Without her involvement in the first 2 seasons, I don't know if I would have kept watching. I mean, season 2 is so addictive. I'm trying to space out these Dawson's Creek closer look back videos, but I watch one episode of Dawson's Creek season 2, I watch another one, and I just keep watching more and more. It's such an addictive season, and it's all because of Abby. Once Abby dies, momentum is certainly lost, especially in the next episode with what happens with Andy. I love Andy's arc too. Andy's like almost the best reason to keep watching this season after Abby dies. And Abby died, she was apparently begging Kevin Williamson to kill her off. she wanted to pursue different kinds of roles, or as she told Kevin Williamson, she had a boyfriend up in New York and she was sick of filming in Wilmington, North Carolina, and wanted to be killed off so she could just get the hell out of North Carolina, which actually sounds like a pretty impulsively Abby decision as well. So they came up with this. And what's so intriguing about her death as well, I bring this up in the other video, but I like that one of her very last lines are, I don't think I'll ever be happy. I'll always not want to be where I am. I just don't want to be a cliche or boring. And then she dies a boring cliche. Her worst fear. Wow. Wow. That's intense. That's intense for this kind of postmodern diatribe. And then the episode that follows, Rest in Peace, with her funeral. I've never seen an episode of a show where a group of characters are having so much inner turmoil, or are so confused over what they're supposed to be feeling because none of them liked her. They all actually seem pretty relieved that she's dead, with the obvious exception of Jen and, by the end of the episode, Andy. Heck, Andy goes through her diary, her personal belongings in her room, trying to find some sort of spark, some sort of sentimental, positive spark inside of her so that she could write her eulogy with some sort of truthful passion. And she just finds more and more mean-spirited comments in her diary. Like, there's just more reasons to hate Abby. Like, Pacey just doesn't care at all, and Dawson and Joey even laugh about how they don't care that she's dead. Jen does not take it well, because Jen understood, because Jen is a part of this function as well. Jen is a wild card of the group, and Abby was the ultimate unexpected wild card. You never knew it was going to happen in an Abby Morgan episode. High Risk Behavior, that's probably one of the best episodes of Dawson's Creek ever. In fact, I say that so confidently, I'm gonna look it up right now, make sure it's called High Risk Behavior, so I don't have to, like, re-record this part. That would be so annoying to me. No? Oh, that's not it. Sex, She Wrote. Obviously, it's called Sex, She Wrote. High Risk Behavior. I'm sure that she was fine in that one, too. But, Sex, She Wrote is the one where, Abby is trying to, figure out who left this note about sex in the class. So one of our main couples are having sex with each other. That's such an entertaining episode, and that's where she's dubbed the Nancy Drew from Hell. But that's also such an incredible moment. One of my favorite moments of the entire show is the bookends of this episode, where she's confronted by the teacher at the beginning of the episode. She gives him, like, a terrible lie, and he thinks she's an idiot. And at the end of the episode, the same teacher confronts her again, and she does something surprising. She decides not to humiliate her classmates, because she obviously finds out that Andy and Pacey had slept with each other. And she goes on this amazing speech, in which she ends with my favorite line on all of Dawson's Creek. Oh, and for the record, integrity is a tired notion last seen in the late 70s. Oh, dude! Fuck yeah, Abby. So much heart, so much intensity to that performance. That Abby is probably the ultimate postmodern brat. Kevin Williamson was good at writing postmodern brats, like Jill in Scream 4. Abby has a bit of her inside of her. Abby is a postmodern brat. These are the brats of postmodernism. It's Abby. Reap what you sow. I love it. But Jen, yeah. Jen was really on a spiral for this entire season. She definitely, I think Michelle Williams, as I've said before, gives the best performance out of everybody within the cast, like, overall, for Dawson's Creek. And oh my god, like, in season 2, she was spiraling, then she was back, and then she was spiraling even further, and then she was back, and then Abby dies, and she spirals even further, and then comes back. It must have been so exhausting to portray Jen Lindley. It really must have been. But Michelle is doing it incredibly well. We're actually watching Michelle become a phenomenal actress in real time. By season 3, she's on point. every line is on point and really creative and full of interesting decisions. Just absolutely, Michelle Williams is one of the most fun things to watch as this show progresses. Her abilities progress too. It's wild. It's a wild thing. Once Abby Morgan dies, and trust me, Abby Morgan has my entire dang heart. Gosh, that's why it's so difficult for me to say this is my favorite season, because I don't like what it insists upon in the end. I don't care. The dads of Dawson's Creek are fucking boring. At least Dawson's dad is like entertainingly cringe. And, I feel for Dawson's dad sometimes. But, I mean, the ending of season 2, I think Joey's dad is such a fucking boring character. I think those are the incredibly boring plot threads. I hate that he is what we climax with in this fucking season. Same with Pacey's dad. I think these are incredibly boring stories. I really do. Season 1 insisted strongly on Joey's dad as well at the end of its season. I don't know why we're ramping up to these really, really boring, frail, and disappointing father figures. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but the Joey's dad shit is just such a fucking bore. Such a fucking bore, I swear to God. And it's not saying anything against the performances. The gentleman who played Joey's father is wonderful. Wonderful. Great. And of course, Katie Holmes, I mean, perfect. Take me away. Katie Holmes is amazing as Joey, and Joey is an amazing character. It's just the Joey's dad shit I don't fucking care about. Same with Pacey's dad. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit. This season like peaked at episode 18 and 19, and then it went on for a couple more episodes. Whatever, it's fine. I think seasons 2 and seasons 3 are probably the best, but I'll let you know. This rewatch has been illuminating in a lot of different ways. I can't get over Abby Morgan. I can't rationalize how great this character is. Like I can't comprehend the enormity of her character, like how much she means to me. It's wild. I love her character. One of the most entertaining people I've ever watched. One of the most entertaining characters I've ever seen on a television show. Abby Morgan. Forever. Love her. I absolutely love her to death. This season is so incredible. This season's absolutely phenomenal. It improves on season 1 in every possible way. This takes postmodern art to a whole other level. This takes popular art to a whole nother level. It takes pop culture with it. This takes postmodern art to uncharted territories. I'd also be a fool not to mention Rachel Lee Cook was awesome on this show. A great guest star. Rachel Lee Cook. What 90s kid did not want to... You know what? I'll leave it at that. the 90s girl of everyone's dream, Rachel Lee Cook. It was amazing to see her. She was great. Absolutely great. Some of this language is pretty verbose. She handled it incredibly well. Great performance. I wish we got to see a little bit more of her character, actually. Rachel Lee Cook, amazing. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to one person. Abby Morgan. Okay, you know what? Screw it. Chances are very, very few people are watching or listening this far into the video anyway. I love Abby Morgan so much, let me be real, because I was like Abby Morgan in high school. I created drama. Hell, I was like this in my early to mid 20s too. Like, I create drama. I get incredibly bored in social groups. I used to have this weird elitist mentality, and it came from nowhere. I thought that everyone around me was boring, so I deliberately tried to manipulate situations to make them more entertaining, more exciting, more cinematic, to get some life, some character out of anybody, some growth, some momentum. Everyone was just a walking trope. Everyone was just so full of just archetypal disbelief. I was exactly like Abby Morgan in high school. I mean, I was I was liked. Um, that's the primary difference. But I relate to her so much. I hated being where I was. No matter where I was, I hated being there. And I hated being there with the people I was with. I associated the people I was with the place that I was. So I hated them because they had to be boring because we were here. Like, we were here, so they had to be boring. They absolutely had to be. Or else, why would they be here? And I was smarter than them, and I was more handsome. Or if they were more attractive than me, then it was some sort of flaw in them. Like, I relate to Abby a lot. You know, I've had a lot of personal growth, and I outgrew a lot of those selfish, narcissistic qualities, if not all of them entirely. I'm a pretty humble person now. The world can do that to you. The world can make you humbled. But Abby, watching her in this is how I was in high school. I hated high school. So I loved making a mockery out of it. I loved making my own preposterous soap opera out of high school, which is what Abby did. Like, I get Abby. You know, we like to see ourselves as the protagonists of everything, as the heroes or whatever, but we're not. We're not always, and the antagonists aren't always the villains. Sometimes they're just antagonizing. I was a pretty antagonizing teenager. I got bored a lot. Being sweet is really fucking boring. So to be real with you guys, at the very end of this video, I was a lot like Abby. And Monica Kina brought her to life in a way that I thought was unbelievable. And saw myself in her a lot. And, you know, helps that I have a crush on her, too. You know, I have a thing for narcissistic, psychopathic brunettes.
Now, Abigail, you're up. Is it possible, Miss Morgan, that you're going to surprise me with your assignment? Is it possible that you finally decided to do something good for yourself and apply a little integrity to your education?
I wouldn't want to disappoint you, Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
I didn't do it.
Whew.
And integrity, just for the record, is a tired notion last seen in the late 70s.
That is one of the best quotes from the entire show. Fuck yeah.
I'm sure a lack of integrity will make it easier to accept your F.
You're a fucking legend,
Just
Abby.
for the record.
One of the best characters
next?
ever written.
Miss McPhee.
Performed perfectly by Monica Kina.
Thank you. Whatever.
You know you are. Dawson's Creek, Season 3. Pacey rejects the narrative. Dawson's Creek is Dawson's show, right? It's his drama. Everyone around him serves an archetypal purpose. And he orchestrates, he directs nearly every part of it. The auteur of his adolescence. Dawson's Creek is Dawson's show. Or at least it had been for 2 seasons. Season 3, as Jen Lindley says at the end of the series, we're not in Cape Side anymore, Toto. We're in uncharted territories. Pacey rejects the show's conceit. Pacey rejects the plot. While Dawson loses the plot, Pacey takes it. You see, Pacey has always been a really interesting character. As an archetype, obviously, he's the goof. He's like, he's a clown, but a James Dean type of clown. There's something intensely attractive about Joshua Jackson, but there's also something just... he's accident prone, if that makes any sense. He is rebellious to a fault. He's always seemed, since his creation, since Kevin Williamson created the character, he's always seemed to speak intensely outside of the Dawson fantasy. He's always seemed to be so maddeningly self-aware, aware of his role, aware of his position in Dawson's narrative, which is Dawson's Creek. He says, the wisecracking best friend never gets the girl. This isn't the wisecracking best friend's show. I am born to live and die unimpressive in Capeside. And yet, in season 3, Pacey takes control. It's a season about a blank wall and a boat. It's a season about making a statement, man. Like, God, it's a season that is a postmodern masterpiece. Pacey wakes up. Pacey falls in love with Joey, with the girl who was designated by her first fucking scene to be nothing more than the girl that defines Dawson's adolescence, than the girl that possibly defines Dawson's life. And that's exactly how Dawson wanted her, but he didn't need her right then, right? She didn't fit his interlude. She didn't fit his design. Not at that exact moment. Not right then and there. So he asks Joey, he says, Pacey, can you take care of Joey? Just look after her and make sure she's okay for a while. And he does so. And Pacey ends up falling in love with her. Pacey is like an archetype gaining self-awareness. That he can take control of this show. That this show could be about him and his happy ending. He buys Joey a wall. A blank wall. In the middle of this town. In the middle of this fishing village. And he says to her, you can paint anything you want to here. And she doesn't. She leaves it blank because she can't figure out what she wants. Because Joey is being pulled between the narrative, between Dawson, and between this unknown variable. Sincerity. Pacey. Pacey ends up painting on there. Like, ask me to stay. Ask me to stay. You need character direction? You need a director? Here's your character motivation, Joey. Pacey is telling you to ask him to stay. Also, Pacey has been working on this boat, this run-down boat. He's sanding it, he's painting it, he's making it seaworthy. Calls it true love. And in the end, into the sunset they go. Joey and Pacey. They were not supposed to do this. They rejected the storyline. Slowly, the other supporting characters in Dawson's ensemble come to support Pacey's rebellion, and they see the archetypal existential sincerity of his forbidden arc. There's this one scene where they go to visit Dawson's aunt, right? And they start singing karaoke. And it's the scene that really made me wake up and go, no, this might be the most impressive piece of postmodern art I've ever seen. They're singing karaoke, and the scene establishes a very kind of goofy tonality. I believe Pacey sings wild thing, and like Andy hams up a few numbers herself, you know. And then it's time for the duet between Joey and Dawson. Because, of course, it's Joey and Dawson. They are inherent. Their love is inherent. This show is obviously about Joey and Dawson's love. Of course it is. Because everyone can see it, right? Because Pacey doesn't deserve it. Pacey's the troublemaker. Pacey's the loser. So they get up there and they sing their song. And everyone's enjoying it. Everyone's thinking it's really funny and really sweet. And even Joey seems to get lost in this kind of awkwardly cute duet. And they're singing... Good night, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to our daydream believer, Anna? Daydream believer. I think I did well for not actually knowing the lyrics, kind of just guessed them. But I watched that clip, that scene, 50 fucking times this watch through, and I went, this is where it gets brilliant, because Pacey is watching, and Pacey is seeing. Pacey is fucking understanding. Pacey is transcending in this scene because he's watching them singing up there, and it's like not only do they look good together, but this is the way it's supposed to be. This is not only the way that it's cinematic, this is the way that everything's been leading to. If Pacey rebels against the love of Dawson and Joey, he's rebelling against him as a conceptual person, him as a human being, the narrative. He's rebelling against his archetype, but he's sitting there and you can see his face. He doesn't want to surrender to the finality. He doesn't want to surrender to absolutism. He doesn't want to admit to himself what is so blatantly and obvious, what's so blatant and obvious to everyone else, that these two are the soulmates. Pacey, you're the guy who comes along and fucks it up. Just stop what you're doing. But he doesn't listen to that voice. Because that voice is insincere. You see, postmodern art gets a really bad rap. Postmodern art gets called insincere all the time, but obviously they've never ever engaged with anything that has anything to do with Kevin Williamson correctly, because postmodern art is all about leading to a new sincerity. New sincerity isn't necessarily detached from postmodernism. All good postmodernism should be sincere. Now, you might have to do a lot of insincere things to attain a new sincerity. You might have to use a gross amount of cynicism, a morbid amount of irony, a gaudy amount of just luscious satire. You might have to use satire, irony, and cynicism to get there. A lot of deconstruction all along the way, but our lives are deconstruction. But you might have to do some insincere things to get to sincerity, but once you're at that point, once you've deconstructed everything down, once the archetypes start to rebel, once everything is going in the right direction, you choose sincerity. And that's what Pacey does. Pacey is the most sincere character in this season of Dawson's Creek. This season of Dawson's Creek is one of the best fucking things I've ever seen in my goddamn life. And it's brilliantly conceived postmodern art. It's also one of the greatest love stories ever. Ever. The love story between Pacey and Joey is beautiful, because you have to imagine they're all archetypes. It's not, you have to keep the postmodernism here, but this is where it turns truly sincere. Dawson, the punished cinephile, but still he's Spielberg. He is directing his own life. He's the auteur. Hell, he gets to have the show named after him. He has nothing to worry about. Everything bends and breaks to his will. Everyone will wait until he's figured out, until his self-obsession has whittled some sort of integrity, until he's able to meditate and find a backbone or a spine that tells him what to do. That's what this season is. He's just afloat. He's just adrift. He doesn't really know what the fuck he wants. He's like, it's an existential crisis for Dawson. Which is a bad thing to happen. Because when your show loses its anchor, the other archetypes start waking up. Pacey, relegated to be wisecracking wild card James Dean clowning best friend, starts to fall in love with the girl next door. Not next door to his house, mind you, next door to Dawson's. To the girl who was designed to fit in Dawson's bed, watching E.T. with him for eternity. And the girl next door, who's always loved Dawson, starts to have some true agency, some true autonomy. And though it kills her, because Dawson, this is almost a triumph for Dawson. Dawson's like the villain of this season. I'm so happy he gets punished so heavily, because near the end of the season, after Dawson finds out about Pacey and Joey, he basically like almost manipulates his parents into getting remarried, and he forces Joey to choose Dawson over Pacey, because he's like, if you choose Pacey, I will never forgive you, I will never talk to you again, yada, 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 bullshit, 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 what an asshole. And that's what almost happens. Season 3 almost ends with the status quo, and thank God for punk rock fucking postmodern rebels like Pacey Witter, because we almost have a realignment of the status quo. We're almost at season 1 again, with Dawson and Joey and Dawson's parents back together again, everybody happy, but especially Dawson, or at least Dawson's happy. But no. Ask me to stay, Joey. Ask me to stay. And Pacey, Joshua Jackson's performance in this season is unreal. Unbelievably good. Like I said, he's always seems to be speaking so intensely. There are times where he's definitely speaking outside of the framework of fantasy, outside of the teen soap. He's speaking as an archetype, stepping outside of his boundaries, overreaching, and successfully so. He's transcending his symbolism, and that's fucking incredible. Meanwhile, Jen, Andy, and Jack do great as supporting members in this season. Lovely seeing Michael Pitt. Henry was a really nice love interest for Jen, and Jen got to relax after being put through the Abby Morgan emotional, devastating, just ringer, the roller coaster of season 2. She got to relax this season and kind of understand what true naive love actually was, and it's represented perfectly well in Michael Pitt's Henry. That's lovely. Andy kind of carves out an actual character for herself. It's good seeing her come into her own. I've always thought she was an underrated character, and Meredith Monroe is always on point. She's a pro. She's always great on the show. And of course, Jack McPhee. This is a legendary season in the history of American television. This is arguably the first true on-screen gay kiss. I mean, arguably, this thing is debatable, but between two men. The male gay kiss between two consenting adults. See, there's a lot of caveats involved. This is the first one that wasn't played for laughs or played out of confusion. This was one that was played because there are feelings between two characters, two men. And it was wonderfully done, and it even ends on rejection as well. And you can possibly view that in a postmodern way too. The WB wasn't ready to commit to an unambiguous and clear line of homosexuality. Maybe they weren't ready for it yet. But still, what Jack McPhee was able to accomplish here, that goes down in television history. And another amazing performance by Kerr Smith and David Dukes, who plays Jack McPhee's father. Some really great scenes between the two of them, coming to understand each other. I'm glad we got this closure between the two of them. It's really good. But obviously, the most interesting part of this season is between Pacey and Joey, with Dawson there as a specter, because like they know they can't do anything. They know that this won't end happy. Pacey's saying all these things it's like he's talking beyond himself, beyond the confines of fantasy. He's saying this isn't the ending I wanted for us, but it's the only ending we'd ever get, because we're living in Dawson's world, Dawson's Creek. This is Dawson's show. But what if it wasn't? What if we were allowed to love each other? What if? What if it was our turn? What if it was our time? What if the theater of the whole world is wider than the creek? Sometimes I like to pretend that this is where the show ended. Dawson told Joey, "You're free." I was keeping you to myself. You're free. The archetype, the symbol, the trope is set free. I like to imagine Joey and Pacey. Pacey broke his chains, and Joey was set free. They were able to just discover a postmodern transcendence. You know? Season 3 of Dawson's Creek is postmodern art at its most wondrously and beautifully impressive. Thank you for tuning in. This is your cult boyfriend saying, wow. When Pacey said, "I remember everything." Who didn't just fall in love? For real. I remember everything. God. God. Our pain makes us real.
No, you wanted me to take off the happy mask, and the happy mask is off. So answer me this one question, because this is what I've been wanting to ask you, Joe. Why are you with me?
Casey.
Why are you with me? Because I don't know why I'm still with you. I mean, I used to know, but I don't anymore.
I'll make a note of that.
What I do know, Joe, I feel like I'm Josephine Potter's little charity project. I feel like I'm the designated loser. Just
Casey.
back off!
Casey, I never said that. Look, this isn't about me. This is about you.
It is about you. It's about you and how you make me feel when I'm with you. Okay? I feel like I'm stupid and I'm worthless and I'm never right. But you know what I realized? That is not my fault. That is not my fault. Because when I'm with you, it's poor Pacey. He didn't get into college. And it's stupid Pacey forgot the limo and ripped the dress and messed up the corsage.
I told you I didn't care about any of
But I
that
want
stuff.
you to care. I want you to care. I don't want you to just accept it like that's the way it's supposed to be. We are not trapped on this boat. You and I are trapped in this relationship. I can't take it anymore, Joey. When I'm with you, I feel like I'm nothing. I feel like I'm nothing. That's why I flinch when you go to touch me. It's why I never touch you, why I never even think about it. Because when I start to, it just reminds me that I'm not good enough.
You done?
Done? Oh, no, I'm not done. I am just getting started.
No, you can stop right now. You can go to hell.
This season of Dawson's Creek wraps up what I consider to be 4 of the most perfect seasons of television when viewed as a whole, considering season 4 ends with an episode called Coda, and it feels like a literal coda. Things feel far more lyrical in this season, musical almost, or at least it makes those musical components of earlier seasons more visible, especially when we're ending with a coda most frequently or most usually being used in a piece of music as a motif to end some sort of symphony or ballad. And that's certainly what most of this season feels like. I would also like to start this video off by saying if you haven't watched my Season 3 analysis video, Dawson's Creek Season 3, A Closer Look, please do. I consider it to be one of my very best videos. I actually find my insight to be really valuable, and I also consider it, since I'm sorry for getting tongue-tied already. God, I just finished my rewatch of Season 4, and I'm a little emotionally drained, but I think that's the best time to record something like this, so that's why I'm already getting tongue-tied. But I think Season 3 is the best season of Dawson's Creek that there is. And I think it's incredibly important. Of course, Season 3 is about Pacey rejecting the narrative. It's probably the most postmodern season of television ever. And it's unique in its postmodern triumph, because of course this show created by Kevin Williamson, his vision, even though he would never admit it, is he's a postmodern sentimentalist. He is Frank Capra of Cape Side, and in season 3, Pacey rejects the narrative, uh, rejects the confines of teen soap melodrama, and refuses to play by those rules. Now, of course, season 4, Pacey and Joey come back. People like to view this season as what happens after Happily Ever After, and that's a perfectly valid way to view the season. But it's very interesting watching Joshua Jackson's performance through it, and I'd like to think that this was all conscious too, from the writers' room to Joshua's craft as an actor. He's even called, like, he's walking through life as a Stepford boyfriend kind of thing, and I think he's doing that from the moment he gets off that ship, because when he's on the ship he says, "Why are we going back to Cape Side?" and he goes through a list of things like, you know, lives ruined, bloodshed. Like, he goes through it, and it's exactly what happens throughout the season. Like, he knows it's going to happen. Of course he is. He's the postmodern punk rock rebel who rejected the narrative, and now he's going back and feels like he must surrender to it. The major themes of this season are about social and sexual inadequacy. Let me just be really frank and maybe really, like, intimate here. I relate to Pacey so much. I wasn't the best in school, right? But I was smart as a whip. I was, like, really witty. If you can imagine me in school through Dawson's Creek archetypes, I was a lot like Pacey Witter with kind of the nastiness or, like, a casual cruelty of an Abby Morgan, which, by the way, I've worked on and I'm doing a lot better. But I was like that. I mean, I dropped out and got my GED. I saw everything as facile and artificial there, from the people to the teachers to the exercises to the lessons. I saw everything as fake. I was a postmodern brat in my own way, like Pacey Witter is. But Pacey, it's like Joshua Jackson is not necessarily sleepwalking, but he's completely fulfilling his archetypal role, which is something that Pacey was so against in the season previous. And it's almost like that character is sleepwalking, or at least literally painting by numbers to fulfill his role as a boyfriend. But you get the feeling from the performance and definitely from the writing that he's internalizing all of this self-hate, all of this self-doubt, and it's kind of incredible to see unfold in one of the best episodes of Dawson's Creek ever, episode 20 of season 4. It's called Promicide, which let's really enjoy that pun work. I'd love to start a punk band named Promicide, but Promicide is one of the best episodes of Dawson's Creek, and it is there that Pacey returns. I included a clip at the beginning of this video. That's where he screams that he's not a charity case, he's not an archetype, and like, he already abandoned this. What is he going to do here? And Joey should live in Dawson's narrative, in Dawson's sentimentalist narrative, because it has success for her. I feel so much for Pacey, especially in the episode where Drew takes him to a dive bar and goes, "Well, I guess I just wanted to show you this. This is what you're gonna end up like, assault of the earth people, you know, hard workers, but like dirtbags, essentially." I mean, that's my life. That's my life, you know, and I resent that. I resent that. I, I resent that incredibly. So Pacey is just so incredibly relatable here, especially with the currency, with the value that all of these teen shows that I love, or I guess probably that are ever made, the value that it puts on college, higher education, on success is just so high. And Pacey sees it as so facile, but also at the same time he sees it as impossible, because he's made it a point to live a certain rebellious lifestyle with a certain philosophical attitude, that at the point where he realized that the real world doesn't bend to his postmodern whims and he's going to be a loser, like, it's truthful. He's going to be one. It's too late to change it. It really is. And I vibe with that so much. It's so sad. as like Joey says, at least Joey did learn from her postmodern adventures, from rejecting the original narrative in season 3. She learned that all we are is a population of memories, some wonderful and endearing, some less so. So, I mean, if we had if we have a spectrum of postmodernism, and on the deconstructionist side, we do have Dawson. We do have Dawson on the deconstructionist side, but on the new sincerity side, that's where Pacey Witter resides. That's absolutely where he resides. There were some decent characters in here who were just seasoned characters. I love Gretchen. Gretchen is so fucking hot, it's ridiculous. Dawson does not deserve her. Gretchen is ridiculously hot, and I feel like she was sidelined as the season continued, though. Which is what happens to love interests of Dawson Leary. They get sidelined for the benefit of Dawson's own self-made filmic narrative he's working out for himself. Everybody is a background player. And I think in like the last episode or something, the center of Dawson's universe is made up of very particular women on pedestals, and she just became a pedestal in the narrative. She started off as a very interesting character. Gretchen was lovely to see. Drew Valentine, I know that they even mentioned this on the show, remember Abby Morgan, and I know that the writers said like there was a huge Abby Morgan-sized hole in the show when Abby left. Abby Morgan's my favorite character on Dawson's Creek, hands down. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love Abby Morgan. I would marry her if I could. I swear, dude. I think she's funny, witty. She had so much heart. A lot of Dawson's Creek fans hate her, and I refuse to accept their worldview. Abby Morgan was perfect, and I saw a lot of myself in her as well. As I said, I had some casual cruelty in high school, and even they deserve empathy. But obviously, Drew Valentine is an analog of that nature. Drew Valentine is the Abby Morgan of this season, down to his infatuation with Jen Lindley. I do not like Drew Valentine. I find him very boring. I find him incredibly contrived, where Abby Morgan felt perfectly theatrical. I mean, there's a difference between theatricality and something that is contrived. And Abby Morgan had a flair for the dramatic, but Drew Valentine just feels forced, is really what I'm saying, except for when he's fucking with Pacey. I wish there were more Pacey and Drew moments, because I think that Drew really exposed the heart of what was fucking up Pacey so much during this season. He exposed it so well for us before it eventually exploded in Promicide. So yeah, more Pacey and Drew is really my entire criticism of that. Drew Valentine probably needed to exist, but everything he could do, Abby could do better. I think I made a meme that was, those like, Mom, can we have Abby Morgan? And then Mom says, we have Abby Morgan at home. And then the Abby Morgan at home is just an extra pixelated image of Drew Valentine giving a stupid Drew Valentine look. I'm not the biggest fan of Drew Valentine. Actor was fine. Nothing against the actor. It's just the function of the character. But this is postmodern sentimentality at its best. There's something perfectly sentimental and something incredibly postmodern and sexy about Pacey alone at the graduation with his, like, feet up on those lawn chairs. Just, I accomplished this, and this is my accomplishment. This is my Harvard. I did it. But when we get to that coda, that's really where it gets interesting, too, because I was starting to, I'm like, well, what more could we do? That was such a wonderful ending, and the coda absolutely figured it out. But before I get there, I just want to say once again that, like, Promicide is so important, because Pacey and Jen is also in the episode Promicide. That's when Drew Valentine is trying to keep her from essentially pulling an Abby Morgan. Like, she almost went out the way Abby Morgan did. She almost got drunk and fell off something and drowned, most likely. Like, that's what you're led to believe would happen. That's the violent implication of how drunk Jen was. And I think both of those characters, their archetypes are ending. This is postmodern deconstructionism with a sentimental attachment to it. This is a perfect example of it. Pacey and Jen's archetypes are ending, and they are rebelling against that fact. They're like replicants, realizing that that the limit is up and that they have to die. In high school films, like, you don't see the Pacey, you don't see the class clown, like the class moron. I don't mean to say moron, but you don't see the troublemaker live. He's not supposed to. Jen, the beautiful blonde stranger from New York, the dangerous, oversexed vixen. These characters, these archetypes, they don't make it out of high school. They get transformed, or they're supposed to die, or they're forgotten and never thought of again. Their archetypes are ending, which explains their mutual outbursts. They both implode in their own ways, and Promicide is incredibly important for that. But that coda is very interesting, especially when Jen and Dawson are saying goodbye to each other, and there's a bunch of mirroring from previous seasons. Wit, we like that around here. Geography is destiny. Of course, mirroring the first time that Jen and Dawson ever met each other. I think that's a wonderful moment. And of course, this season ends with Dawson and Joey watching E.T. one last time. And of course, Daydream Believer, which I consider to be the most significant musical cue of the entire show, possibly more significant than I Don't Want to Wait by Paula Cole. Daydream Believer, I think it's one of the most beautiful moments of season 3. I cover that in the video where Pacey is in love with Joey, but he has to watch Dawson and Joey sing Daydream Believer as a duet during karaoke. And he leaves the room out of refusal, out of rebellion, but it's also disgust. And it's also self-hate and self-doubt because they look perfect together, because that's the way it's supposed to be, Pacey. You're not supposed to ruin the sentimental narrative. That's not what you're supposed to do, but of course he has to, because true love, and because that's his true nature. But Daydream Believer kicks in because that's their song, and they kiss by the window, and it's beautifully silhouetted to mirror the ending of the first season. And also to mirror the ending of the very first pilot episode. The coda was actually quite incredible. This was an incredible season. I was getting worried. There are moments where the show buys into its own conceit, but it would have to, right? If season 3 completely rejected the narrative, there's not much you can do after you reject something. That's the problem with postmodern art and postmodern philosophy. Most people who practice postmodern art and postmodern philosophy, they can do deconstruction really well. They can tear something down. But only people, acolytes of Kevin Williamson, can really know how to inject a new sincerity into something. That new sincerity is going to look a whole lot like sentimentality, because if postmodernism can prove anything, it's that meaning, wherever you can find it, is ultimately contrived. It's fake. It's forced. That's what meaning is. But you can't live a life without meaning, so some things have to be idealized to have any sort of ideal at all. If our lives are made up of memories, memories are ideals that make us up, those things that you can't help but believe in, that make you who you are, those are memories. And those are how we interpret them, how we've deconstructed them to fit into our worlds, and how our worlds inform everything about us. I mean, it's all contrived meaning, and that's where postmodern sentimentality gets true, but there's something incredibly sincere about it if you can buy into the conceit entirely while remaining self-aware enough to know the fictive reality of your situation. I think season 4 really does that incredibly well. Season 4 was beautiful. If Dawson's Creek had ended here, I think a lot of people would be very happy. I don't hate season 5. Season 6 gives me a lot of issues until we get to the 2-part series finale written by Kevin Williamson, which I actually think is fantastic and superb. The rest of season 6 is a chore, honestly, and season 5 isn't the greatest, but I definitely don't hate it as much as most Dawson's Creek fans do. But season 4, seasons 1 through 4, this is beautiful. This is beautiful television. It's beautiful philosophy, and I can't express my gratitude enough for this show, for these episodes to be airing in my formative years. I think it informed so much about my nature and my personality, being around Dawson, Pacey, Joey, Jack, and Jen, and Andy. I think it informed so much and taught me so much about how to view the world. And I can express even more gratitude. I couldn't express enough of it to show that I'm so grateful to be revisiting these here in my early 30s. Because it's teaching me things too, and of course there's a secret validation here, but we all deserve paradise. And I think that in some way, that's not only a valid request from life, it's a reasonable one.
This could be very funny. You guys made it to the end of this video. You guys are real go-getters. I admire your stamina, your devotion, your interest. You know, it's really charming. It's really charming. And I think you deserve something fun at the end of all of that. Now, my true Dawson's Creek self is showing. I know 8 lines of this song very well. That said, there's a lot more than 8 lines. And I've actually never played it before, because I never really intend to play it again. So this is just for us. Are you ready? It's just for us. So open up your morning light and say a little prayer for I know that if we are to stay alive and see the peace in every eye. Do 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 do. 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 She had 2 babies. One was 6 months, one was 3. In the war of 34, or 44, depends on how you read it, right? Every telephone ring, every heartbeat singing when she thought it was God calling her. Or would her son grow to know his father? Fuck all that noise. This is what we came here for. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I wanna know right now, what will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. Will it be yes or will it be sorry? Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. All wet on the rainy front step, wearing shrapnel in his skin. And the war he saw lies inside it still. It's hard to be gentle and warm. The years pass by and now he has granddaughters. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I wanna know right now, what will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. Will it be yes or will it be sorry? Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Now we get to a bridge that just is baffling to me. Oh, you look at me from across the room. You're wearing that anguish again. Believe me, I know the feeling. It sucks you into the jaws of anger. So breathe a little more deeply, my love. All we have is this moment. And I don't want to do that to his father, and his father, and his father, and his father did. Now it sounds like a Violent Femme song. I want to be here now. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I wanna know right now, what will it be?
the morning light and say a little prayer for I. You know that if we are to stay alive, see the place in every eye. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I wanna know right now, what will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. Will it be yes or will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I wanna know right now, what will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. Will it be yes or will it be? I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. I wanna know right now, what will it be? Everybody at home, I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. Will it be yes or will it be? Sorry. Do 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 do. 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 Thank you so much for watching. Your cult boyfriends take, analysis, insight, brilliant video about Dawson's Creek Season 4. Stick around, Season 5 is coming. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over before we get another Your Cult Boyfriend vid. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. He's my favorite YouTuber. Bye guys, thanks for watching. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Leery with nothing to say? I find that hard to believe. I'm your cult boyfriend, and I would like to talk to you about the 5th season of Dawson's Creek. Well, generally, the 5th and 6th seasons are looked on kind of with contempt from a lot of fans of the show, because the first 4 seasons were just that good. They were so good. So incredible, in fact, that there is a very, very strong argument that the show should have probably ended after high school. That we shouldn't have followed these characters any further. That we should have ended with the daydream believer, Dawson and Joey. It was such a perfect ending. Season 4 really was such a perfect ending. I'm just thinking about it now, and yeah, that's really the perfect place to end it. And even by that point, showrunner, creator, genius, Kevin Williamson had already been gone. So, really, a season 5 does seem kind of puzzling, but there is a reason around it, and while season 5 isn't as good as the first 4 seasons, I do like it a lot more than season 6. Season 5 is, it has some shining moments, mostly in the incredible form of Chad Michael Murray, who is also actually like a pretty controversial character. I love Charlie. Charlie is amazing. I love being around Charlie. Chad Michael Murray can fucking murder me if he wants. He's incredible. He's fucking super hot. What the fuck is wrong with any of you? Charlie makes this season almost worth watching. Season 5 it does try to do certain things. A certain thing the show is trying to do is that like, it's no longer a joke. that Dawson really isn't the star of Dawson's Creek, that it's Joey's Creek. It's no longer just like a theory or a joke. I mean, but by season 5, it is clearly Joey's show. But I think more importantly, or more interestingly than that, it's Katie Holmes. It's like an advertisement for Katie Holmes as a celebrity, as a movie star, as a future goddess of Tinseltown. It's like this is really an advertisement for Katie Holmes as a pinup, as a postmodern pinup, and I think it actually does really successfully. And like, I mean, they put her on stage and like she's singing songs in Charlie's band, but the show does get interesting even in spite of what that is. But even that right there isn't too. I don't really take umbrage with that too much, to be honest. I do find this as if it is an advertisement for Katie Holmes as a postmodern pinup, as a postmodern teen idol, then it's a fascinating bit of advertisement, right? Because it is an idealized form in a show of deconstructed forms. It's a self-aware form in a show that is almost cripplingly self-aware. It's kind of fascinatingly done. If it is an advertisement for Katie Holmes as postmodern pinup, which it mostly is. But if I can dwell on Charlie for a second, because I think that Charlie is the secret ingredient of season 5. If there was no Charlie, no matter how much I love Katie Holmes, no matter how much I adore that woman and just to have a huge crush on her, season 5 operating simply as an advertisement for her as a sex symbol really doesn't work. You know, I mean, like, I don't need to be sold to this 22 episode long or 23 episode long extent. I don't really need to be sold this heavily. Kind of preaching to the choir here. Chad Michael Murray as the male version of this postmodern sex symbol, as the male version of this postmodern pinup. This is like right before One Tree Hill. This is right before Chad Michael Murray was going to kind of define masculine beauty standards for the next 5 or 6 years. And you can totally see it here. He is a scene stealer. He's a heart stopper. The guy is so fucking hot that it's distracting, but it's really electrifying to see. And you can tell they didn't exactly know what they were doing with Charlie. He was supposed to be Jen's love interest. But since the show is a vehicle for Katie Holmes as a product, at this point, the show is a vehicle for Katie Holmes as a product. They very clearly decided to remove Jen from Charlie, to kind of put Michelle Williams on the back burner. And since the show was really the show was hyper fixated on Joey Potter, on Katie Holmes, and they were going to give Katie Holmes this brand new shiny toy that they didn't exactly know what to do with, but boy, is he a lot of fun to play with. Charlie is a fascinating character. It's fascinating to see to see the invention of two sex symbols, right? And one is organic, while the other is the other is just created. We are watching Katie Holmes being created into a sex symbol, being molded into even more of one. I'm not really sure why that was necessary, because she definitely stole everyone's hearts in the first 4 seasons of Dawson's Creek. In fact, like, this forcible sexualization of Katie Holmes in season 5 is a bit crude, because part of what made Katie Holmes so irresistible was her understated appeal. What was always her girl next door quality and a naive quality. And season 5 is seeking to diminish that naivety, which is fine. That comes with adulthood, but I think it's seeking to diminish the naivety so that they can sexualize something about her more overtly, you know. As the show has said, sexy will always win out over sweet, or sexy will always win out over nice. And Abby would say, you know, being sweet is pretty fucking boring. So we have to would have to revitalize the sex symbol of the show. They could have easily done that with Michelle Williams. I'm not sure why they didn't. I think that Katie Holmes had a lot of juice on this set, but she's being created into a sex symbol, whereas Chad Michael Murray is just organically becoming one. Like with him, it's undeniable. It's like, whoa, holy shit, I'm thirsty. All of this, I'm parched. Every time Charlie walks on screen, it's very interesting seeing these two icons interact with each other, because it is iconography interacting with each other. It's studio made and it's organic, and they are talking to each other, and they don't know how to act with each other, but one has to leave. I mean, clearly Chad Michael Murray is leaving for a greater opportunity for One Tree Hill. That's clearly why Chad Michael Murray is leaving, but that doesn't diminish the poetry of their relationship. And I think it really conveys precisely what I'm talking about here, with Katie Holmes acting very coy and very naive and very innocent, very reserved, and I think really trying to magnify the differences between Michelle Williams and her product description, and a Katie Holmes and her brand. Right, they're really driving this home, which could explain why Michelle Williams had such a poor time on Dawson's Creek by most of the accounts I've read of her experiences making the show. They definitely do seem to deliberately sideline her and really not be subtle about it. I don't think this would have happened if Kevin Williamson was still around. Kevin Williamson loved Katie Holmes, and Katie Holmes was Kevin's muse, but Kevin, I mean, he would talk about how all you had to do was see Katie's eyes, and there is so much pathos, so much pity in them, that you really don't have to do much else. That's what I'm talking about. The understated, just undeniable beauty of Katie is far more interesting than the contrived sexualization that Dawson's Creek Season 5 goes for. But, my God, Chad Michael Murray has a fucking rockin' bod, am I right, everybody? Oh my God, it's wonderful seeing them interact with each other. It's something organic meeting something contrived, but what's so bittersweet about it is that it's something organic meeting something that was where Chad Michael Murray was 3 years earlier. Dawson's Creek Season 1 and 2 was really when Katie Holmes was becoming an icon. And she was becoming one in a way that was equally as organic as Chad Michael Murray. And it's like, Chad, they're going to do this to you. Like, Charlie, you will become Joey Potter Season 5 eventually. I mean, and that certainly happened. They found a way to make Chad Michael Murray's beauty convoluted within his own vehicle, within his own television series, which is what's happening with Joey Potter. We have some other cool guest stars. Of course, Ken Marino. I'm a big fan of The State and of Veronica Mars and Party Down. I love seeing Ken Marino. And I think he is a dapper, good-looking, fine gentleman. It's just so hard seeing the guy, whose most famous line in television history is, "I want to dip my balls in it," really just send Joey for a romantic loop. That's a little hard to accept, but it's fun. Ken Marino does incredibly. And, of course, Audrey Busy Phillips enters the frame. Busy Phillips is excellent in this. Good pairing between her and Pacey, which is what ultimately happens. She definitely seems tailor-made for a Pacey, almost deliberately written to be so, deliberately conceived to be Pacey's new love interest, and they play off each other wonderfully. I do like that we are following three actually, since finally Jack, Jen, Joey, Dawson, and they're all pursuing higher education and a bit more of a privileged or traditionally successful lifestyle. And I do like that we're seeing Pacey working in hot kitchens. He's rising extremely fast, so that's because it's television. I don't want to see this guy wash dishes for 2 seasons. I do like that we're being shown an alternative lifestyle, and they didn't pull some strings and get him into Worthington or something stupid. I like that Pacey is our blue collar hero, is our postmodern Brad, who who refuses to be held down, to be pinned down by some great and absurd weight. Pacey will always bounce back, and Pacey makes everything look good, especially working in a kitchen. I just think that that's good representation. This show would be so depressing to watch if I was just watching a bunch of people, like, a bunch of fictive characters who were, like, far more successful than I could ever dream of being. I'm like, okay, thank God there's a Pacey. Thank God there's, like, a normal fucking dude going through the same kind of problems, able to participate in the same level of postmodern diatribes as the rest of them. Dawson Leary does get to be pretty interesting this season. I mean, he's consistently interesting. In this one, he loses his father. He loses the patriarch of the Leary family is removed from us. And Dawson Leary needs to step up for, his new sister, Lily Leary. And he's also becoming disillusioned with film and filmmaking. And I do love the character Oliver that he ends up making a film with. Oliver is pretty cool, and no one in the comments better say that I remind them of Oliver. I will ban you. But Oliver is a really cool, like, it is kind of funny that Kevin Williamson really didn't have anything to do with this season, because he reminds me of a Williamson cinephile. This kid is like some Tarantino reject who could possibly just explode in violent outburst, and very creepy, very weird. I love the guy. Fantastic little character there. I love Oliver. And Dawson does end up teaching himself a sentimental lesson through this show. And the show is aware that it really doesn't have a whole lot to say. That's why they're like, a Leary with nothing to say? That's insane. Like, Dawson doesn't want to leave until his baby sister says her first word. And it's like, and we don't want to leave the show until Dawson's Creek actually makes a statement. Because Dawson's Creek is about making these postmodern statements. It's about making these really incredibly complex and sophisticated statements about life and love and coming of age, and yet all the way up to like its final episode, the show's really not being profound, but it's acting like it is. But it's acting like it's so profound, but the show is self-aware enough to know a Leary with nothing to say. I've never heard of that. We must be mistaken. So yeah, it's an 11th hour save the cat moment for the show, where Dawson, it's all about missed opportunities. It's all about it's kind of hinting at where we're going to go through to season 6 and its final couple episodes there, which were written by Kevin Williamson. So there definitely was some sort of communication here, because it entertains the idea that in real life you can't have every opportunity that you'd like to have. In real life you can't. But in contrived cinematic or syndicated, like televised circumstances, of course you can. That's what television is for. That's what this medium is for. In fact, we shouldn't deconstruct art forms so much that we forget the function of the art itself. This season ends at an airport with so many different moving parts, and it feels like it's on a stage because it is. And it's not trying to pretend as if it isn't. It feels so contrived, so theatrical, as it should, because Dawson's having this revelatory feeling. Our Frank Capra of Capeside is remembering sentimentality and remembering the poetry within it. We almost had a nihilist Dawson Leary through some of this season, with him losing his virginity, and then he tries to idolize that moment or keep it in a stasis. But that's the whole thing about sex, or definitely about like the first couple times you do have sex. These moments are like so fleeting. They were built to be fleeting. Making love isn't something that's supposed to be kept within some sort of stasis. This isn't something that was meant to be stationary. Having sex is always supposed to be this thing that is always in motion, that is always changing, and even in your memories of them, the memories themselves are dissipating. And that probably drives Dawson Leary insane. He and Jen Of course they couldn't last, because also Jen, if there's one thing Jen does not like, it's feeling like she's being held in place. Jen admires ambition, even if it's a self-destructive ambition. But Dawson Leary has this weird sentimental ambition, which is rather unattractive, or it's at least philosophical suicide, as according to Jen Lindley. And I don't disagree with her at all. Sentimental ambition is philosophical suicide. I would have to agree with Jen Lindley, and that's ultimately why I believe Jen Lindley dumped Dawson Leary. But I suppose my main point is that the show ultimately, every season except for season 3, which makes season 3 so incredible, where characters literally abandon Dawson's narrative, the show accepts Dawson's narrative, because Dawson's narrative is one of optimism. And the show is trying to form a statement about, we don't want to have any missed opportunities, that film can give us the opportunities that we missed. And we can watch those moments over and over again. We can watch those same moments played out by different actors within the same kind of formula. That film can give us the sentimentality that our nihilistic lives refuse to give us. That's kind of the realization that our own Frank Capra of Cape Side, our own Dawson Leary, our own postmodern auteur, that's a realization he comes to. Season 5 does have quite a few things to say. They just wait a long time to say them. But even before then, the Charlie and Joey back and forth, that dynamic, that chemistry is really fascinating to watch. Might not have been deliberately intended to be as fascinating as it was, given the circumstances, but it doesn't make it any less impactful. I love watching Charlie and Joey together. I love watching Charlie and Jen together. I love watching Charlie. Let me be fucking straight up. I love Charlie. I love watching Charlie. And since I love Katie Holmes with all of my fucking heart, if I get to spend more time with her, that's fine. That's really fine by me. I can just see how it kind of hurts the overall body of Dawson's Creek. I can see how it could damage it in a certain way, because it just seems unnecessary. We know that Katie Holmes is incredible. We know she's stunning. We know that her smile is one of the most contagious fucking things on the planet. We don't need to be forcibly in her orbit all the time. Katie Holmes is incredible. I mean, we don't need that. It's like it had to prove that to us. Like, why would you ever have to prove that to us? Everyone knows it. That's Katie's power. I would say just stop trying so hard. She's incredible. Katie Holmes in an understated role. That's a strength. The strength of this season really didn't flex too much, to be honest. Jen Lindley, though, Michelle Williams is quickly becoming one of the greatest actors of her generation. You know, fuck a sex symbol. She don't need one. She don't need to be one. I mean, she's beautiful in her own right. But seriously, you watch Dawson's Creek, and if there's any truly consistent arc, it's Michelle Williams kind of learning how to act, or in a certain way, or at least learning how to be transcendentally good at acting. Because by season 5, every line is delivered in almost experimentally daring ways. Like, she's so confident. The decisions that she makes as an actress are so surprising and so incredibly rewarding to watch. I love watching Michelle Williams act during these last during the second half of Dawson's Creek. She really comes into her own and makes Jen such a dynamo character, such an amazing character, that the events of season 6 are going to break your fucking heart in a million pieces. And I really can't wait. I really can't wait for that. Yeah, Kerr Smith did wonderfully as Jack. We get to see a little bit of internalized homophobia on the part of frat boys. We get to see that whole system kind of cave in on itself. It's kind of where I think that Jack might have BPD, like Jack might have borderline personality disorder. I think that this is just kind of bad writing, but it does feel like Jack, while there is a consistent like inner Jack core that doesn't change. But I think it's probably due to Kerr Smith more than anything else. There's always a Kerr Smith in there who understands Jack perfectly. The writers seem to want to change who he is almost every single season, and it makes me feel like he has borderline personality disorder, because I never know which Jack I'm going to get, but I know I'm stuck with whatever new Jack they want to give me every season. Whether he be a weird art kid, a frat boy, or a lovesick and kind of romantic quarterback or football player or whatever. That's kind of annoying about Jack's character, but regardless, he's amazing. He's an amazing character because Kerr Smith was such a charismatic actor and understood the importance, the significance of Jack McPhee so much that Kerr Smith made sure that it was powerful and that it was still consistent and that it was still empathetic, and it definitely totally was. I just wish the writers had a bit more consistency or like really understood who Jack was, because they really do have a firm understanding of Pacey, Dawson, Jen, and Joey. They always have understood those archetypes. Just Jack gets it's like they don't know who the fuck Jack is. They never know. But thank God for Kerr Smith for having a really deep understanding of the character from day one, so that all these weird, seemingly random, last minute changes to his character don't affect the overall character of Jack McPhee. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Season 5. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you it's not a step down from seasons 1 through 4. Is it unnecessary? Yes, but I think that great television shows need unnecessary parts. I absolutely feel that way, especially if it's a postmodern one, especially if it's basically a postmodern epic diatribe. I need episodes that meander. I need entire seasons, entire storylines, entire characters that go nowhere. Because obviously, postmodernism is it's heavily about existential inertia. This Dawson's Creek season 5 is existential inertia, the TV show, and while it may be irritating to watch, I think it's fascinating to consume. I think there's a lot of interesting things here to talk about, and I think that like I almost think like it's trying to be irritable. I almost think that it's trying to be antagonistic at times, or at least it knows that it's either in trouble or that it's a true departure, a true stylistic, narrative, tonal departure for the first 4 seasons. It was they just got stuck in the weeds a little bit. Like, you don't have to prove to me that Katie Holmes is hot as fuck. Trust me, I already know. You have to prove to me that Dawson's Creek could exist outside of high school and had the same power. That's what you should have been focusing on. Not whether or not I wanted to fuck Katie Holmes. You should have been focusing on whether or not Dawson's Creek is has the legs to survive college, which it did not necessarily prove. I think it's a good season. I think there's a lot of a lot of parts that are difficult to endure, but I'm so happy that I did. I'm always happy that I do. Whenever I rewatch this show, I'm always kind of low key looking forward to season 5. You can really relax. You can really just have fun with it and just chill, because there's not a whole lot of consequence to this season. And yeah, I have to be hot and cold with this one. If I sound contradictory, this is a hot and cold season. There are great parts and there are bad parts, and overall it's a deeply flawed but deeply moving piece of television. And I think it's a very unique, incredibly idiosyncratic example of controversial postmodern pop art. Thank you. I'm your cult boyfriend. And in the comments, what do you think of Dawson's Creek Season 5? I've yet to meet someone who genuinely loves it, and I would love to meet that person. Let's have a chat. Thank you for watching my video. I have a lot of other videos on Dawson's Creek on this channel, including video essays about specific characters. Have ones about Joey Potter, Jen Lindley, and oh my gosh, Abby Morgan, the best character on Dawson's Creek. It's been too long, Abby. I miss the golden days of Season 2. I miss you, Abby. It's been too long. All these people are too fucking sweet, and being sweet is fucking boring. I need you to create drama for me, baby. Fuck. I miss Abby. That's what Season 5 makes me do. I miss Abby. Oh, have a good one. Your cult boyfriend here. I'm honestly feeling like your sick boyfriend right now, so if my delivery sounds stilted or weird, that's why. And if this whole video comes across as some sort of bizarre fever dream, that's also why. Endings are stubborn, and they are what they are. To be a postmodern teen idol, a sex symbol in a time of post-irony, a deliberately idealized form in the age of the deconstructed form, a beauty so self-referential it fetishizes the sentimental. To the postmodernist, nothing is more taboo than sentimentality. Nothing is more tender than nostalgia. On top of that, nothing is more nostalgic than first love. To immortalize her, the girl next door, the young girl who secretly defines us. While our feelings for her seem to be crystallized, emotional time standing sentimentally still, the girl herself becomes a woman, a muse, something greater, some celebrated thing. Our Joey Potter is always leaving and constantly arriving. An idol of postmodern pop can only be framed in motion. Our Creek days stand still, her smile's still there. Naivety is not dishonesty. We come of age, we grow, endlessly barreling outwards. Sentimentality can be sincere, and some girls never die. Just ask Frank Capra of Cape Side. Joey Potter, it's been too long. I miss the feeling. I miss its revelations. Postmodern diatribes have been told with ruined Shakespearean tongues. A perfect sonnet couldn't capture Joey Potter. She must be framed in motion. Joey Potter is inescapable sentimentality. Joey Potter is the postmodernist's weakness. Joey makes me weak. She makes me melodramatic. Joey Potter drives postmodernists insane. Joey Potter is the most perfect thing in an imperfect universe. Joey is hope itself. Hope for understanding and knowing the world is beautiful because she's alive, because Josephine Potter is meaning itself. My meaning, my dream, Joey Potter and Dawson's Creek and the Daydream Believer. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. To see her, as Dawson and Pacey do, to realize Dawson's Creek isn't actually about Dawson Leary. It's Joey's show, her creek, his tribute to her. To see her in motion. No sonnet can accomplish what a dream can. To deconstruct the ultimate postmodern dream girl. All we have to do is admire the naked eroticism of nostalgia and sentimentality. The romantic imagination fueling every possibility. Even postmodernists dream. Do postmodernists dream of deconstructed lips? Or do they dream of her breath? Do they dream of the machinations of love, or do postmodernists dream of love's song in its rhythm, in motion, as in its act, its event? Postmodernism can't account for Joey Potter. Philosophy bets against her, but I wouldn't. Oh, what can it mean
We all have a Joey Potter. Katie Holmes is beautiful, nearly mystically in tune with audience self-reference. We still see Katie Holmes, but we can also see the real person we're projecting onto Dawson's projection. Dawson's Creek is part postmodern fantasy. Joey Potter is magical. Her archetype compels the viewer to project their own first love onto Katie Holmes, who, apart from being nearly goddess-like in her own right, her sad and feeling eyes compel the viewer to make idols of their boyhood crushes. Dawson's Creek is a postmodern teen series that turns the jaded and self-aware into oblivious daydream believers. Joey Potter was the only character who actually appeared in every episode. Katie Holmes was always in motion, and we were trying to keep up, desperately, to a daydream believer. I don't think anything's more informative than first loves. Nothing has more lasting interpersonal or philosophical effect than sexual awakening. Joey Potter largely defines us all. Dawson and Pacey are helplessly drawn to her. Dawson tries to hold her still. He attempts to freeze her, as if her appeal could one day wither, and maybe one day it will. It might. But that's a cruelty. Dawson wants her to stand still so he can hold her, so he can wrap his arms around her in place, in a specifically deliberate position. Dawson doesn't trust perpetual motion. In fact, he rejects it. Pacey wants Joey to transcend, to abandon the narrative structure of Dawson Leary's life and sail with him into the unknown, the unwritten, and the unaired. Pacey can keep up with her motion at her speed, but he knows his role, his archetype, his unimpressive destiny. His future would contain and conceal her, so he would rather lose her than compromise her movements. And homecoming queen. Jen Lindley is not Joey Potter, decidedly not. Agreed upon by all to not be Joey Potter. No one even tried to hold Jen Lindley still. She was fetishized in early episodes, but never worshipped as Joey Potter always, consistently, daringly was. Jen didn't need to understand Dawson, and Dawson saw her in more experiential dimensions, as something to be experienced, more mature than he saw Joey, which irritated Joey. Because Dawson was obsessed with trying to keep his postmodern dream girl still, trying to keep his sentimental brunette sentimental. Joey is an incredible woman. Dawson used Jen to express the physicality of want. She was bad girl sophistication, and Joey wasn't. I personally feel I'm pretty open about how I feel about Katie Holmes. I personally think Katie Holmes is basically the most beautiful woman ever. She's definitely my personal dream girl. Her acting is also exceptional, and her Dawson's Creek performance is honestly legendary. Her eyes had a power, and her smile still stuns. Her speech pattern still absorbs us, and the smallest bit of her motion, even isolated, moves mountains once believed glacial and inert. Katie Holmes is still moving, and she'll never stop moving. Dear Joey Potter, it's important to remember you. Everyone has a you. You've been in every life. Every life possible, imaginable. Everyone has a Joey, the girl who could crush cynicism. Joey Potter, the girl next door that nihilism is afraid of. The girl so full of meaning that meaninglessness itself, hip, trendy, sexy, is forgotten, lest the meaning of her figure takes over. Joey Potter, the first girl to surprise you keeps surprising you. Ask me to stay, or leave with me. Did you surprise her? She deserves a beautiful shock to her narrative system. Can you keep up? You can't paint her. You can't hold her. Can you liberate her? She's subject to the same absurd penalties of existence we all are. Boyhood crushes as forever existential others. Dawson wants to protect her from the nihilism of the postmodern age. Keep her in some sort of idealistic captivity. Pacey thinks she's stronger than any philosophical prison. Joey Potter is the unknowing enemy of nihilism. Joey Potter, the nemesis of the meaningless. She continues to grow. Her touch attacks our world. I'll tell you one thing, though. I wouldn't bet against that Potter girl. The odds are insurmountable, but she's powerful. The Achilles heel of the modern thinker is the girl behind the bleachers wearing your t-shirt. Intensely smart and overwhelmingly attractive, Joey Potter is the goddess of memory in the postmodern collective. To be a sex symbol in the pop postmodern era is a complicated role. Katie Holmes' beauty is undeniable and likely eternal. But she's more than that. Katie Holmes is a pinup of meaning in its fullest, purest form. She's a meaningful centerfold in a meaningless time. A centerfold of pure and total meaning. The postmodernist desires meaning above all else, no matter what they will tell you. And the meaning of Katie Holmes is just as undeniable and palpable as her sublime physical features. She's the meaning we lack. Katie Holmes embodies the light at the end of the tunnel, and Joey Potter represents the kiss hidden within the void, the smile illuminating our abyss. Dawson's Creek is moving, and it holds the capacity to make me extremely emotional. I am very impressed by just about everything about it. The first 4 seasons are perfect, unparalleled, nearly without, beyond compare or measure. Even seasons 5 and 6, widely agreed to be populated by missteps and fueled by a fluctuating sense of qualitative substance, are still valuable in their own idiosyncratic ways. For instance, I love how Charlie chooses to interact with the sex symbol that is Katie Holmes as Joey Potter. I love the way that Charlie is drawn to it. This is, of course, Chad Michael Murray's character in season 5. There's still a fascinating interaction between iconography with the male sex symbol of postmodernism confronting and trying to romance the female counterpart. By far, the show's most astonishing achievement was providing postmodern pop with a new postmodern dream girl, a sincere antidote to nihilism. Joey Potter as the retributive justice for the lost, self-defeated absurdist. Sisyphus never stopped moving, and neither should postmodern sex symbols, nor should their memory. And what gives golden memories their indescribable movements? Sentimentality and melodrama drives these motions. Joey Potter represents the inescapable sincerity of the naive and of the lovesick. And I love Joey. I love Joey Potter a lot. Yep. Yeah. I just finished season 6 of Dawson's Creek, and yeah, I cried like an absolute baby. It still works, effortlessly, every bloody time. It effortlessly makes me bawl. I'd like to start this video off by saying that Dawson's Creek is one of the greatest
television shows ever. It's one of my personal favorite shows. And with this video, we come to the close of what feels like an arc for the channel and for me, because this is season 6, the final season, and I've covered every season up to this point, and I've also done some character studies and drive-by analyses of certain characters and events. So even doing this video, I feel a little emotional about it. The way this video is going to work is that I'm going to briefly as I possibly can, talk about Season 6 proper. So that's Season 6, but not including the final 2 episodes written by Kevin Williamson that complete the series. I'm going to include a video essay I had already done, one of my very first Dawson Creek videos, actually, called Frank Capra of Cape Side. I'm going to include that, and it's really great. It's really good. I couldn't do it better now, and I'm really surprised I analyzed the episodes as well as I did back then, so that will follow this. Because when you're watching this season, the final 2 episodes, the series finale, All Good Things Must Come to an End, they do feel a bit like tacked on. They're brilliant episodes, but they feel a bit tacked on. It feels like there's a season finale, and then there's the series finale. So let's talk about Season 6 proper. There's a part of Season 6 where a mean professor provides us with a critique of Catch-22. He says of Catch-22, injecting an amoral generation with a moral, an embarrassing betrayal of all the dark comedy that came before, but I kinda like it. Dawson's Creek is about making a gigantic postmodern statement through one long, epic diatribe, but without chaos there'd be no happy exits. It's about sentimentality. It's about a postmodern sentimentality. I came to a realization watching this season, and the previous one as well. College media, college shows, college films don't work as well as high school ones do. Dawson's Creek is no different. The first 4 seasons are beautiful, they're magical, they're ineffable, indescribably incredible. And then when they go to college, the quality drops. The captivating moments become fewer and farther between. And why is that? And it's not unique to Dawson's Creek. This happens to every television series that progresses from high school to college. Happened to Buffy. It happened to Veronica Mars. It happens to everyone. No matter how great their high school days were, the college days are less engaging. And I think I figured it out. High school is the great equalizer in a lot of ways. You have to go to high school. College is somewhat voluntary and basically an advertisement of privilege at the same time for a lot of different people. Cape Side High is the only space that Joey Potter and Pacey Witter, Jen Lindley, Jack McPhee, Dawson Leary, and Abby Morgan, that's the only space they can occupy together, and the only space they'll ever be expected to occupy together in their entire lives. You have future line cooks next to Worthington elite, sharing the same space, breathing the same air, speaking within the same conversations, being equals, or as equal as they can ever be, being forced to inhabit the same environment. College, that's a great separator. It's really magnified on Dawson's Creek with Pacey not even going to college, and of course not. Happens to the best of us. I didn't really go either. You had Joey in Worthington, you had Dawson in film school. They were separate. High school is really where you confront those things. High school, when you look back on it, it's sentimentally confrontational because with nostalgia of that variety comes the bittersweet affection of postmodernism. And maybe high school films are still so successful because there's a certain trauma in our lives that we'd like some wish fulfillment for. We'd like to imagine us finally getting the girl or getting the guy's attention, or that dance at prom that we never actually experienced. Maybe we need to work through things. Maybe we need to confront things that we never really worked through. And maybe we never worked through them because in high school, when we're coming of age, that's when we're forced to face and confront problems that are endless and that are unsolvable. But nothing's unlivable. You can live with anything. You can live with everything. Dawson's Creek is about optimism. Dawson's Creek makes a phenomenal statement. Through a sentimentally postmodern language. I've never mentioned James Van Der Beek and Joshua Jackson. We had enough scenes in this season that it reminded me of the beautiful chemistry between these two actors. I love the Pawson, I love the Pacey and Dawson chemistry. And I never realized how much I loved it than when they reintroduced it in season 6. I really missed it. There's something really powerful about seeing Dawson and Pacey confronting each other, because they seem to speak outside of the limits of televised narrative. They seem to speak outside of the script, outside of the plot, outside of the art. And Pacey is talking to almost his creator, his writer, a would-be god, and Dawson is chastising a troublemaker. It's always phenomenal. It's always really gripping when Joshua Jackson and James Van Der Beek have a confrontational moment, which the first 3 to 4 seasons, there were plenty of those. And I never appreciated them as much as I should have. And seeing them happen again in season 6 was a delight. It was a delightful thing. Season 6 is the worst season of Dawson's Creek, though. I hate every guest star, barring Todd Carr, who is really a carryover from season 5. Let's be real. I love Todd Carr. I think Todd Carr is hilarious. I think he's really funny. I think he's really touching and charismatic. I like Todd Carr a lot. That said, I hate Eddie. I hate Natasha. I hate Emma. I hate Rich. Oh my god. I hate David. I hate CJ so much. I basically hate every character that was given focus in season 6, apart from our main ones. I think season 6, they were the writers, the show itself, that was gasping for air a lot of the time. They would just give up and show us a No Doubt concert for 20 minutes, or they would give up and sink even further into embarrassment by giving us Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla as guest stars, or Jack Osborne popping up and nonstop. It's a nauseatingly dull and dreadful season, for the most part. Then we get those final 2 episodes, don't we? Then Kevin Williamson comes back to fix, to torment, and to cherish his broken archetypes. The creator comes back to wrap it up. And that's what this video, the rest of it anyway, is going to be about. But I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for going on this journey with me. I understand myself a lot more. This isn't the end of my Dawson's Creek coverage, but it's the end of a pretty large chapter of it. And let me just emphasize, or really make it clear, that I think season 6 is pretty bad, but there are shining moments. It's just that those moments are scattered, and their impact is compromised by the dull and annoying surroundings that they always end up taking place within. But season 6 does have some really good parts. Before the series finale, even there is some remarkable characterization every so often. But on the whole, it's the worst season of Dawson's Creek, almost by a long shot. And now the rest of the video will be dedicated to two of the best episodes of Dawson's Creek. Two of the most moving hours of television ever. The series finale. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm writing this feeling disturbed or hopeful. I'm feeling something I have never felt before. I just finished Dawson's Creek and completed the truly masterful 2-part series finale, Season 6, Episode 23, All Good Things, ... and 24, Come to an End. I cried. Now before you click off the video, don't worry and don't feel left out either. I understand most of my viewers probably haven't watched a single episode of Dawson's Creek, never mind 128 of them, but don't sweat it. Kevin Williamson's great artistic statement is really something you need to hear. You need to understand Williamson because analyzing his body of work has changed my entire outlook on the cinema and has directly informed damaged parts of my real life. His art made me better, more completely incompleted. It's a good thing. It's actually great. I'll explain later. Williamson made his name by publicly humiliating, demonizing, and punishing cinephilia in Scream, Scream 2, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. He would create Dawson's Creek in 1998 only to leave the show after 2 remarkable seasons. He populated his show with deconstructed symbols of the cinephile, the intellectual, the clown, and the muse. Frank Capra, Audrey Hepburn, James Dean, and Marilyn Monroe. The show continued to rise in popularity even after Williamson's early departure and eventually crossed a historic bridge by featuring the first true on-television gay kiss in Season 3. Played with honesty and not played for laughs. Dawson's Creek had become a landmark American teen soap. In 2003, the show was ending after 6 seasons of fluctuating quality and somewhat inconsistent philosophy, and Williamson had returned to his broken archetypes to personally write the final bow himself. He had to make sense of the sentiment. Williamson is one of the most articulate writers in postmodern art. He knew all he wanted. No, all he had to say, what he must state and express with it. Imagine a postmodern Frank Capra, if you can conjure the image. What happens to the filmic romantics when sentimentality is seen as dead as Christ? Whatever happened to Frank Capra of Capeside? Sentimentality is dead, and we have killed it. Who can defend static sentiments? 90s popular art deliberately parodied and ridiculed ethos and rejected ideology. Kevin Williamson was certainly one of these postmodern madmen and troublemakers who stripped it bare and tore it down. Kevin spent most of his writing on Dawson's Creek up to this point experimenting with cliches disguised as send-ups. Dawson's Creek's finale features philosophical truth in defense of sentimentality, masquerading as postmodern cliches disguised as send-ups, within a takedown of self-referential frameworks. Williamson had something intensely important to say about life imitating art, imitating life. Check it out, because this is everything. It is both a rejection and celebration of teen hyperbole. Williamson takes ownership of the show's outdated verbal deconstruction of teen angst and composes a dissertation in postmodern diatribe. Part funeral for the cinematically godless and part baby shower for the new believers. Michelle Williams as Jennifer Lindley. This is it. This is why you have to know and understand. Williamson gives us an archetype on her deathbed. Jen is dying from heart failure, but not before she's given birth to a new sincerity disguised as newborn archetype, a baby to be raised by the aging, surviving archetypes, her friends, Jack, Dawson, Pacey, Joey, and Grams, the tropes that bind. Jen, our dying and undying muse, bad girl staple of Capeside unreality. The filmic profane to Joey's virginal cinematic holy of holies, Michelle Williams is a national treasure and one of the finest screen actors of her generation, or possibly ever. I would argue that. She came into her own on Dawson's Creek, and through Jen Lindley by Abby Morgan's death late season 2, Williams was experimenting with pitch, delivery, posture, and pathos. Michelle and Kevin, Williams and Williamson. By 2003, Michelle Williams' performance on the show was mind-bogglingly layered, complex, sophisticated in a postmodern sense, and unexpected and inspired. Williamson had to kill Williams. She's the actor. Her performance, the writing behind her, the way she had been captured for years. Michelle's Jen Lindley is the archetype who transcended philosophical restrictions and surpassed genre limitations. Her archetype was full and she was different. A remarkably dynamic character that clashed with her static counterparts. Jen Lindley had to die, and Kevin Williamson had to write her out. Williamson writes, to have Jen know she will die soon. Abruptly, unfairly, but sincerely. On her deathbed, he has her say to Jack, because I am gonna die, like everything else in my life, I don't really know how to do that. But I'd like to not screw it up. I'd like it to be something that I get right for once. She says later into Dawson's camcorder, objectified one final time, it's not important if you believe in God. It's important that you believe in something. Williamson took Dawson's Creek to transform a superficial trope, a bad girl muse, into something truthful and worth believing in. He didn't make her more human, awkwardly when presenting archetypes within deconstructed formats. To humanize is counterintuitively dehumanizing when dealing specifically with the philosophy of a filmic acceptance of unreality. Jen's symbol changed itself in real time. Jen Lindley seemed to claim supernatural ownership of her artifice. The Jen Lindley character possessed artistic agency. At the beginning of the episode, All Good Things, ... Jeremy Sisto admonishes the audience for not possessing the show. In this case, Dawson Leary's Metamax, The Creek, styled precisely after Dawson's Creek itself, based on the friends he knows as the archetypes they will forever be remembered as and for. Not derivative, but wait on that point. Sisto's character posits that the show isn't possessed by its audience. Rather, the audience is possessed by the show. And of course that's the case. Kevin Williamson deliberately set out to correct the show's course, to finish it right. Dawson says, life has no opposite. Dawson Leary had long been the show's shameless sentimentalist in the tradition of Spielberg and Capra. He's nostalgic for the Creek days that possess him. His nostalgia possesses him. Dawson, the often punished cinephile, has made a name for himself in television by this point in the show. He tells Joey, somehow, even if you don't choose me, I feel we'll always be together, he says. You and me always, to be echoed by the recreations of it on his television show, The Creek. Life imitating art, imitating life. And Joey says to him, you get to live twice. Archetypes like Dawson Leary and Joey Potter get to live a countless amount of times deconstructed or entirely earnest, philosophically astute or disengaged. Dawson, having been a character based on Williamson himself, is also a writer of postmodern teen melodrama like William was and has always been. You get the idea that Williamson was perhaps correcting his own life,
or at least realizing several different lives and timelines through his cinema, specifically the syndicated cinema of Dawson's Creek. What Dawson makes aren't necessarily tributes of sentimentality. He represents an entire culture who respond to and comprehend life in cinematic terms. By this same token, what Williamson makes are not necessarily postmodern takedowns of American attitudes, however self-aware he can be. Dawson Leary and Kevin Williamson provide the same end product, the sentimentalist and the ironic postmodernist. It's life imitating art that imitates art imitating life. Filmic unreality upon many filmic unrealisms that forever speak and forever seek to be as moving and inspiring as real life that takes its dramatic cues and contrived literal stage direction from the filmic unrealities that are based in actual emotion. Living twice or thrice or infinitely, indefinitely, until you get it right. And the art transcends beyond itself because the art is sincere and it sincerely explores true life cinematically fulfilled. True life cinematically fulfilled. Destiny and fate are concepts that don't belong in our lived-in reality. These things thrive cinematically to give our lives to the holiness and profanity they truly deserve. Our lives deserve to be both holy and profane. Kevin Williamson, a postmodern architect of sincere unreality, gifts his life and his audiences with the romanticism, the destiny, the real world refuses to give us and give to him, give to anyone. The unapologetic sentimentality postmodern life rejects is gifted to us by Kevin Williamson and Dawson's Creek. Our lives are allowed to be both holy and profane, contradictory, truthful, nostalgic, and deconstructed. In a way, Williamson passes a torch to openly queer characters as Jack is chosen, selected by Jen to raise her daughter, our new archetype, in her death. Williamson, a queer writer, a queer creative, a genius in his own right, was a pivotal figure in gay representation in popular media, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. Jack promises to his dying existential other, to Jen, his hag, she will know love. Jack expresses how he's tired of being first, tired of re-educating communities, and Jack doesn't want to inspire anymore. Our gay archetype has been fed up by being reduced to simply gay archetypal. He wants to raise the new feminine character eternal, external, born of the muse, the bad girl, the complicated blonde stranger from New York, the lover, Jen, Jennifer, the whore, the Madonna, the teenage queen of integrity. Lindley, Michelle Williams, Jen Lindley, her offspring, progeny, her daughter, Williams, Williamson, raise her in belief, with belief, as an unknown archetype of sincerity, a belief we've earned through our deconstruction. By reducing every ideology to dust, we've earned the artistic right to believe in belief and know love. Kevin Williamson was never trying to break the notion of destiny and fate at all. He was trying to honestly repair them. He was desperately attempting to mend, to repair nostalgia, to make something artistically honest from things that are conceptually unreal. God. I feel completely devastated after that ending. The series finale of Dawson's Creek, it has fucked me up for days. I'm still fucked up over it. I can't get over it. So much power, so many sophistication, so complicated. Unfathomably complicated. Kevin Williamson. You fucked me up, man. Thanks for watching this video.
feel like you needed to understand this. You needed to understand. Hope.
Oh, I could hide neath the wings of the bluebird as it sings. The 6 o'clock alarm would never ring, but it rings and I rise, wash the sleep out of my eyes. My shaving razor's cold and it still stings. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? You once thought of me as a white knight on a theme. Now you know how happy I can be, and our good times start and end without dollar more to spend. But how much, baby, do we really need? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to our daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a
homecoming queen. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and 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 a daydream believer. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? I'm not done making Dawson's Creek videos, but this is the end of one of the arcs. So, I don't know. If you're still watching, you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to sing along with me one more time. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? One more time, sleep out, sleep. I can sing it myself. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Thank you for watching my videos about Dawson's Creek. Cheer